Many reasons why. First of all, the reward in Olam Haba is qualitatively different than Olam Hazeh, so you couldn't get it anyway. It doesn't, there's nothing here that would qualify as a reward in Olam Haba. Besides, the amount is infinite. So how could you give somebody infinite reward here? You know what I'm saying? Okay. Everything that you get here just enables you to go on, or it gives you a greater opportunity.
Yeah, but isn't that a very depressing thought that every person hopes to live for many, many years? So basically, all the riches that he's doing is like he's putting it in a sealed bank account.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
Better health or a job or a better share in this world. That's erroneous. There are no rewards in Olam Hazeh.
Schar mitzvah b'hai alma leka. That's a definitive statement, absolute. Nothing that you experience in this world, even if it's phenomenal, is not considered a reward. It is considered an opportunity. For instance, if somebody all of a sudden wins $300 million lottery, that's not a reward.
You can't think they have the skills.
No, because the reward in Olam Haba, 1 second of a reward in Olam Haba is infinitely greater than all the pleasurable moments of all mankind throughout all the generations. So how could you possibly have that type of reward? Here, you can't. Like I said, quantitatively and qualitatively, what goes on in Olam Haba is completely different. But what everything is here is an opportunity to do more mitzvahs. It provides you an opportunity to, that's what it is.
I'll
give you an example, for instance. Friends, imagine if you work in a bank and you're, what do you call those guys behind the bank? Clerk. Tell us. And all of a sudden they came home and said to the person, we like what you're doing. Is this on, by the way?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Imagine that you said to the person, I like what you're doing, I'm going to make you a manager. Is that a reward? No. Because you have to work. Yeah, you still have to work. The only thing, it's a greater opportunity, right? Whatever that means, more money, maybe more responsibility, now you're more in charge. That's all it is, it's an opportunity. There is no such thing as a reward.
But when you mispal for parnasa,
that's an opportunity.
It's not called a reward.
No, not at all.
It's tefillah.
It's an opportunity because if you have a parnasa, you can learn more Torah, you can do more tzedakah, more chesed, and so on. These are all opportunities.
So schar v'oynish is not possible in this world.
Oynish is possible.
But that's schar.
That's schar. And the only reason why oynish is possible is because to get into Olam Haba, you have to be completely Torah. You cannot get into Olam Haba and have any claims against you sin-wise. That's why everything is done before Olam Haba, whether it be here or Gilgul, Gehenna, whatever it is, has to be complete before you walk into Olam Haba. Because that is a place that...
But what it says over there, right? So the Oichel Perisayim is not considered reward. Those are considered rewards, or not? Those are rewards?
There are no rewards in Olam Hazeh.
But so when it says that's what?
That could be a consequence, let's say, for what you've done, which will allow you now to have, again, more opportunities.
Opportunities.
Yeah, but there are no rewards. That's why Karen Kayemas, the real reward can only take place in Olam Haba, not in Olam Hazeh. People make a mistake. They think, oh, wow, I'm getting great stuff because of the mitzvah I did. No. Whatever you did is allowing you a greater opportunity and so on. Or maybe allow you to be easier to live, right? But then again, you have challenges and so on, But it's not the reward that awaits people in Olam Haba. That's very critical. What?
We see that tzaddikim have a better life than Rishon.
Love that. What?
Yeah. What'd you meet? I like to meet that tzaddik. No.
Yesh tzaddik v'toiv lo yesh tzaddik
There are
v'ra'la.
tzaddikim that suffer terribly.
I'm moving on to your
So
topic.
they always accept, right, that's Moshe Rabbeinu's questioning of our brothers, but
There's no way.
most tzaddikim you see have a good life.
Do they? I don't know. I see a lot of friar guys.
He's right in the fact that a tzaddik has
A lot of
bitachon.
shoyim have great lives.
I don't know
They have
any brothers
simchas
that
chayim,
have a good life.
bitachon, and they have simchas chayim.
Well, that's
What he says, if
Anyway.
a tzaddik person is tzaddik, has bitachon. He has bitachon many.
I had gone into certain ideas. What the whole purpose is, what the whole avodah really is. Well, that's what that's an interesting topic. Anyway, what fundamentally is done, and what we realize is that, like I said, there's a concept of there's a thing called a Tikkun process, and Tikkun, as I have mentioned, really is obviously to correct some type of deficiency, to undo, to correct, to repair, to restore, whatever word you want to use, a deficient situation or state. But what's important to remember is that I mentioned it last week, and that is that there is, our tachlis is to bring ore down. I had mentioned that last week, I think, whatever, right? To bring down ore, certain divine energy, to bring it down. And right now we hold it in storage because we can't use it immediately, but certainly to bring down a certain credible amount of kedusha, it's called ore or energy and so on. So that's really what our job is. And that creates zikuch, which is to purify the material world, or I should say to dematerialize it. And that itself goes greater and greater dematerializations until ultimately it becomes part of our Ilam Haba. That's really what we want to do. So what we're really doing is removing the barrier that we have to experiencing the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's really what it is. Because the physical universe doesn't allow us really to experience God, the Rebbeinu Shalom, in a way that is truly incredible. So therefore we have to dematerialize. And that's, by the way, one of the reasons you'll notice there are religions that tell you to stay away from the world. Christianity is classic, and that's why they have these things called monasteries. What's a monastery? A monastery is fundamentally a place that you escape life. You go upstairs to the mountain, wherever it's located, and you meditate, you do whatever you do, and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, it's a way to avoid or to escape life. Judaism, on the contrary, all the mitzvahs force you to interact with life. Why? Because if you have to dematerialize the universe or the world, you need to interact with the world. The trick isn't to escape. What Judaism demands isn't an escape from life, right? It's to channel life and to dematerialize it.
To take out the spiritual from the material.
To take out the spiritual from
Distill the
well,
spiritual
you could
from the material.
you could say it that way. But
Distill the materialism into a
change.
spirituality.
Wait. It's to transform the
The
material
varazad
universe.
in its sites, like we say.
Yeah, I'm not using that expression.
That's like the
Last show it was more in detail, so we can go through it again.
Yeah.
It's very in detail.
Yeah, but the thing is to change or to transform a physical universe into a spiritual one. That's fundamentally, how you look at it. And therefore, what's necessary is a mitzvah, interacts with the physical world. All the mitzvahs, if you look at Shas, the Siddharm of mitzvahs and so on, there's Roim. It forces us to interact, that if you are a farmer and you have truma, maestros and so on, you need to do the mitzvah, and therefore you change the physical world in that aspect into a spiritual one. Moed, all the mitzvahs force you to interact with the world, but what they do is they restrict you, they limit you, or they force you to perform a physical act with a specific guideline, you see. So if you do that, then you interact with the physical world through the guidelines of the mitzvah, and therefore you change the physical world ultimately into a spiritual one. That's why Judaism is all about the world, not about monasteries. That's a classic difference. And of course, in the interaction itself, you have to avoid corrupting it, and that's the Yetzer Hara, where you can corrupt that what you do at a physical level in a wrong way. So that's the concept where the Satan wants you to interact with the physical world, but for yourself and in the wrong way as opposed to the mitzvah. But Judaism is very much concerned with the physical world, which is different than many other religions. They are concerned, like I said, with getting away. Judaism concerned is getting into, and so on. Very big difference.
When you talk about the are you referring to the gunners?
No, I'm talking about the ore of the spheres. The ore of gunners is different. The ore of the spheres that you bring down and you dematerialize the universe, which is something I mentioned last week. Take a look at that.
This
Anyway.
is really different. Rabbi told me one time that the difference between all the other tzaddikim before Avram and Avram himself.
Yeah. What about it?
Something that the Mashri had Saba, but could this also be a difference that he was the one to actually go out and make and spread Kavod Shemayim, whereas everybody else was locked in their
Well,
own?
actually, in this parsha, the reason why I like them, the reason why Avraham Avinu was chosen, not because he was a tzaddik. I mean, you had tzaddikim in those days. You had Mr. Shelach, Shem Be'ev, and so on. He was chosen because the Rosh knew that he would pass down the heritage of mitzvahs.
So could it be since he
to
was
his
also in
descendants.
his whole? Could also be that his whole mission in life was to spread the Kavod Shemayim, and that's essentially what. Instead of being locked away in the
certainly, I would use that was certainly his emphasis. Yeah.
So is that included in Lamai Yitzhak?
Yeah, oh yeah, sure. Because Bonham, Talmidim are like Bonham. So that would be included. It's not just your children, it's mankind too. Yeah, I certainly would include that. So, it's to get it out, as they say, to promote, to publicize, and so on. The whole concept. In any case, so the main idea then is to do the mitzvahs for the zikuch and so on, But as I said, if you do a chet, then the ore doesn't go to you, the ore goes to the sun. That's a tremendous balance that we have to be concerned with and so on. So either the ore is coming to us as a result of our mitzvahs, or the ore is going to him as a result of our sins. And therefore the job becomes twofold. The job is no longer to bring down ore, or the enormous amount of divine kedusha energy, right? The job is also to take away from the Satan that which we've given him. You need to get rid of you, and therefore, and that's what, by the way, energizes the Satan. What energizes the Satan is the fact that he has the ore of our affairs.
When you do tshuva, you de-energize him?
Wait, that's what I'm going to talk about. Now, the question is then, well, what do? We have two jobs, okay? And how do we do the first or the second? Well, the first job, which is to bring down ore, okay, is through mitzvahs. You do the mitzvahs, you bring down the ore. And doing the mitzvahs depends on a lot of things. The act, the mind, the intent, right? There's certain components that go into a mitzvah, which is very important. There's the act itself, which is visible. Then there's the intent of the person, his kavanah, his focus, and so on. That's not observable. That's part of the mitzvah, which means that also determines how the quality of that mitzvah and therefore the amount of ore. But there's also a third aspect, by the way, which is certainly unobservable, but it's probably greater. You might know what that is? When you do a mitzvah, like I said, there's the act itself, there's the state of mind as you're doing the act. Then there's a third component, which is even greater. Anybody can figure that out? And it's not observable, even to the person actually doing the mitzvah.
The kedusha of the person?
No. I mean, his status, kedusha status. Well, no, that would enable his kavanah. That kicks in the kavanah. No. It's an interesting idea. You know what it is? Chazal say, in fact, it's in Brachos. The fum tsaro agro. What does that mean? The fum tsaro, according to the effort or the pain, tsaro. Agro is reward. What does that mean? What does the fum tsaro agro really mean? According to the pain, the effort, Shtadlos, is the reward. Is what? Is the reward, which is mozikoch. What's that called? What gives when something gives a person tremendous difficulty, really difficult.
Yes, sir.
Who?
Yes, sir.
No. And you still do the mitzvah. Give me an example. You live 2 miles from the shul, right? and it's cold outside, and it's snowing, right? And all of a sudden, 6:30, the alarm rings, and you say, well, am I going to get up a minyan? Let's say you can't use your car because the snow is 2 feet high, right? So you're not going to use a car.
That's
and all of a
serious
sudden,
nefesh.
It's called a challenge.
The serious nefesh.
he got it. It's called Materialist Nefesh, exactly.
So you're taking away from your materialism by giving
Get the
away-
consequences. Let's just understand. That's Mesilas Nefesh. Mesilas Nefesh is an intangible. Go measure it. Mesilas Nefesh means self-sacrifice. What are you giving up? What do you have to contend with that's painful to do this mitzvah? That's an intangible. Even the guy himself doesn't really know. Maybe you can get a feel of that. But Mesilas Nefesh is part of the reward, in this case with Zikuch, but ultimately be the reward Noidam Habo. It's mamish part of it. And not only that, Konta Chazal, from Sarah Agro, it's the greatest determinant. What are you giving up to do a mitzvah? That will determine much more how much reward you get than the other two, which is the act and the intent. Interesting. So there are 3 major components in doing a mitzvah that determine the quality, the zikuch, the dematerialization, and ultimately, of course, the reward Noidam Habo. Interesting idea. Does anybody know why? Why would Mesilas Nefesh be so important?
Because you're dematerializing
No,
more.
no, that's the consequence. Why?
Diminishes one's ego.
Why is it, if you're Mesilas Nefesh, self-sacrifice, the greater the self-sacrifice, the more reward Noidam Habo? Why?
Total bittul
Of what?
Ego.
of your neshama to the Rebbeinu back.
Or there you go.
You're
Because
completely saying that I don't exist. I'm just whatever.
And how are you saying that?
Diminishing ego.
Who?
A diminishing ego.
Yeah, both of you are really saying it, but
You're diminishing your
You're pointing in the
materialism,
right
your
direction.
kashmias by being Mesilas Nefesh.
no, it's not the Kashmirs, no. What's the problem here? Okay, what's the conflict really? In every mitzvah, what's the conflict really? Who?
I mean, you never bombs, nefesh.
No, that's fancy stuff.
Bechira Yitzhak Torah.
Me or him?
It's a time against the Yetzirah.
We're not up to that, it's fancy
Yeah, it's
stuff
a time
yet.
against the Yetzirah.
No.
Me or him?
That's too simple.
Me or him?
Who's me? Me?
Myself.
Who's
or
him?
God.
Oh, God. Yeah. It's the conflict of everything you do, especially when it's a mitzvah, right? Who dominates? Whose will is the real will? Therefore, who is? Do I exist independent of God if I can do whatever I want? Or it's He, Einoi B'Vadoi. Every conflict of mitzvah, every mitzvah creates that conflict. Whose will is primary? Wins. You see? So when you do the mitzvah, what are you really doing? Not only are you testifying His will, and therefore He is supreme, but you're also saying at the same time, I am subservient or nothing. So therefore, right, what is the indicator, or in what way can a person prove that he is everything and I'm nothing? What's the greatest way of demonstrating that? And the answer is
Mesilas Nefesh.
Mesilas Nefesh.
It's not.
That's
The only
one.
thing is
You see, because Mesilas Nefesh, the greater the effort or the difficulty of doing a mitzvah, the greater is the statement of you're it and I'm zero. And the reward is totally on what you feel about yourself and what you say about him. Right? And that's the Mida Keneged Mida. To the extent that you say he is everything, you will be masik that Noidam Habo. You will get that. Therefore, Mesilas Nefesh is the real contest. You see, it's the real battle that you have to do. You see? And that's why it's the greatest reward. Because the reward itself is hasogas ichudoi, or to experience God. So the greater you deny your own self, the greater you will experience the self, the God self, so to speak. You see? And Mesiras Nefesh is the way you actually demonstrate that.
But the Moshe still wants you to preserve the goof to the whatever extent possible.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying no. No, I'm just saying, why is Mesiras Nefesh why is that the greatest determinant of reward? And the answer is, since reward is Eino B'Vadoy, is to experience God. The greatest way to experience God, right, is to deny. It comes from the greatest denial of self
What was Moshe?
worth.
Mesiras Nefesh?
Moshe Rabbeinu?
He was a bittul of whatever himself completely.
Yes, he was.
But that was called Mesiras Nefesh. What did he do?
No. Moshe Rabbeinu's understanding of the Rebbeinu Shem came from the hasaga of being a novi. If you're a novi and God talks to you, you immediately know what the truth is. You're zero. You feel you're zero.
So you don't need Mesiras Nefesh in that case?
You do. Moshe Rabbeinu's Mesiras Nefesh was the first 80 years.
Also,
First 80 years of his life.
B'cheina Misifra Secha is also Mesiras Nefesh.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it wasn't Mesiras Nefesh in the last 40. Of course there was. But the real Mesiras Nefesh was to remain who he was until he's 80 years old. The guy's 80 years old, they think it's over with.
So you're saying Mesiras Nefesh by...
Nothing serious is going to happen after this. But the funny thing about it is that's when he first began to live, when he was 80. Everything before 80 was insignificant. It's only after 80 that he really got, life began.
So we're not talking Mesiras Nefesh of death, we're saying Mesiras Nefesh on a mental basis.
Yeah.
That's still Mesiras Nefesh.
I'm saying, okay.
To wake up in the
But what's
morning
the-
when
you
you're
know-
very tired and it's cold, that's Mesiras Nefesh.
But by Moshe Rabbeinu to remain
Yeah,
to remain
that's
who you were at 80
So
to remain who you were at 80 years old and remain what? Unbelievable Mesiras Nefesh. To be among the goyim.
Avram
to remain-
Avinu, he was Shloshel Avila.
Wait. No. Anyway, to remain that way is the greatest Mesiras Nefesh. But anyway,
What's the formula?
wait, I want to go on. Anyway, I'm just trying to give you a feel of some of the vital elements in doing the avoid and so on, Okay, so the question then is, how do we take out the stuff from the Satan? So mitzvahs brings down the ore. The way you take it out of the Satan is through two other ways. Tshuva. Tshuva, when you repent or undo, essentially, you can take it out of the hands of the Satan. And the second of that is Yisurim. When you suffer, the Satan also is depleted. When you suffer also. So you have three avodas. Mitzvahs, Tshuva, and Yisurim. All three ultimately will bring ore. Just that they bring ore from different directions.
Tshuva is separate than mitzvahs.
Yes. Yeah, tshuva is you did a sin. And now you have to do tshuva.
Yeah, but it is a mitzvah.
What?
It is a mitzvah. It is a
Yes, it happens to be a mitzvah, yes. But it's different than all other mitzvahs. Because it always comes after a chet.
And also can turn
And
around
it's-
the Aveira into a mitzvah.
Well,
Tshuva miyava becomes a mitzvah.
I'm not going into the actual description of what tshuva does and so on. But that's what basically
Part of
tshuva
what the
does.
Satan does.
Therefore, what?
Part of what the Satan does is to bring pain and destruction. When he does that to the world, people, countries, does he lessen his own power in creating pain and suffering?
Well, it depends. In a certain sense,
He
yes.
might.
In a certain sense, yes. Yeah. But the gain by that is if he gives suffering to a person, that person may say, well, why am I suffering? God's unfair, and then I'm going to do more chatoim. There's a trade-off here. He's hoping that.
He's investing his
He's hoping that.
into more, into Gemara.
They get angry.
Well, he's hoping that the
He's
payoff.
hoping that the payoff will be
He
more.
challenge someone's
Yeah.
faith in Hashem.
Anyway,
Okay.
so that's so you have that. Now, if that's the case, there's something very important to know. I had mentioned that we have Tiferes and Oiz. We have beauty and might, Gevura, Oiz, which translates as Tiferes is beauty in the sense of insight, Chokhmah, tremendous wisdom, know-how. That's Tiferes. And Oiz is strength, might, or Hatzlacha, the ability to do. Now, we have it, so when Klal Yisrael is doing the mitzvahs, so they will have Tiferes and Oiz. When they do the Averis and then the Satan has it, he will get the Tiferes and Oiz. So it's interesting. You can actually see who's winning by who's got the Tiferes and Oiz. Isn't that interesting? It becomes a barometer. Take a look at who's got the Tiferes and Ois, and do you know, either we've done all the sins, we've done too many sinning, right, and he's got majority, or we've done so many mitzvahs, we've got it. So, if that's the case, you begin to realize certain things. There are two modes in terms of, there are two methods that can do the tikkun in a certain sense, And the Baruch had to arrange this. If you do mitzvahs, you will do the tikkun by bringing down the ore through the mitzvahs, right? But what happens if you don't do mitzvahs? What happens if you do sinning a majority of the time? Then you also have to do the tikkun. Same thing. You see, by Adam Rishon, when he sinned, or before he sinned, so his job was to do the tikkun. How? By doing the mitzvahs. But what happens if Adam sins, which is what he did? There has to be a way to do the tikkun through sinning, in the sense of Yisurin. There has to be a way. And that's what happened. There's method A and method B. So method A is when Klal Yisrael is in a situation where they're primarily doing mitzvahs. Therefore, they have the Tiferes v'Oyos. And you'll notice that was when? That was from the time of Avram Avinu. He had the Tiferes and Oyos. Kings used to come over to me. They wanted to marry into his family. You see that Hagar was an Egyptian princess. It's interesting, And it was better to be a slave in the house of Avram than to be a queen, which is incredible when you think about that. And you find that this concept of Tiferes v'Oyos, that the Jews had this, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, you know what I'm saying? And certainly they lost it to a certain extent by Mitzrayim, but then they gained it, by Yeshua, then the Shlomo Melech. The Klal Yisrael was on the ups until the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash. That's when you begin to see that the Tiferes and Oyos switched. And we have been losing it since then.
And we regained it after the Second World War a little bit, no?
The Second World War?
Yeah.
Come on now?
Yeah.
That's a good point, which we'll, just hold on to that point, yeah. But you can actually look at, which method are we primarily in?
By Shleiftim, it was going back and forth. We're getting captured by foreign Aram or whoever it was, and then the Shleifim came and rescued them back and forth. The Shekhinah was going back and forth?
No, the fact that we have wars isn't an indication. It's the status of the civilization of Jews.
They were subjugated from time to time.
Well, you had a back and forth, but it wasn't as devastating. Golus is the ultimate. The Golus, the persecutions, the Inquisitions, the Crusades. That's what Tiferes and Oyos is in the hands of the Goyim. And that because we have been continuously subjected to their might and their beauty, civilizations and so on. That already means that the Tiferes and Oyos primarily is in that, and therefore we have to do the tikkun to a method B as opposed to method A. But so as long as it's back and forth, that's one thing. But we've been running for the last 2,000 years. We're not talking here anymore about Tiferes and Oyos in our hands. We're not talking about Tiferes and Oyos in the hands of Goyim. See, so it comes out that Tiferes and Oyos, who has this, really is a result of, what's the method? So if we do the mitzvahs, we bring the ore down, we're going to have the Tiferes and Oyos. If we're not doing that method, we're doing method B, which is to do what? Which is, we're sinning, and therefore the only way we're going to get this back is basically tshuva and yisurim. So with the method B, we won't have the Tiferes and Oyos. So by looking where the Tiferes and Oyos is, you can actually see which method is primary. And clearly for the last 2,000 years, or for the last 2,500 years, the Tiferes and Oyos has been in the hands of the Goyim, primarily. And we have been in Golus.
Just
levels.
having the Beis Hamikdash alone.
What was that?
Just having the Beis Hamikdash alone is not an indicator it's Tiferes and Oyos?
Well, to a certain extent it is, but it's already diminishing. Because in the second Beis Hamikdash you didn't have the Oren, it's already beginning to lose.
The time of the first Beis Hamikdash, when they had all those things, then it was called Tiferes and Oyos.
Yeah, oh yeah. Probably one of the greatest pieces of Tiferes and Oyos was Shlomo Melech. Shlomo Melech, he was like everybody, he was king, he had 1,000, 700 wives, and they were all to ally himself with other kings and all that. Whatever, no.
So
The Tikun of Shlomo HaMelech and so on, this was...
700 more.
Well, it continued, it continued,
Was a
when
brief-
Jews
brief
had a
part of
kingdom,
history.
Jews, when Jews had a kingdom, we had Tiferes V'Yos. Yeah, we'd always be warring with other nations and so on. Jews had a war with themselves.
That was the apex of the
Yeah.
Tiferes and
Yeah, so the first more or less 1,000 years, the Jews had the Tiferes V'Yos, back and forth. It's only with the Churban Sheni, that's when the whole thing just fell apart, and they took the Tiferes V'Yos. Then you had the major religions of Christianity and Islam and so on, and the Jews then were just gullus again and again, all kinds of persecutions and all that. That was the beginning of the end of the Tiferes, the primary Tiferes V'Yos. You see, so therefore the Tikkun proceeds one of two ways, and based on the Tiferes V'Yos, which is what you get when you have the Or, this is what you see. So therefore we begin to see that there are two fundamental stages of Klal Yisrael. When they have the Tiferes V'Yos, mainly doing the mitzvahs, so they bring down the Or. When they don't have the Tiferes V'Yos, Satan's got it, persecutions and exile and crusades and Holocaust and all the kinds of stuff.
According to what you're saying, the time of Gullus where the persecutions are more extreme,
Yeah.
there's more tikkun getting done. So looking at the broader perspective, the Holocaust was a better time than we are in.
No, I
Right?
certainly would say it's better.
I mean, there's more tikkun, more yisurim. If Plan B is going full force.
The reason why there's more Yisurim is because there's more sins that you got to collect, that you got to make up for. I wouldn't call that better. It's much more sins that Klal Yisrael have done. I mean, the Holocaust is one of the greatest indicators that Klal Yisrael must have had an unbelievable amount of chatoim. To justify that type of Yisur. I mean, part of the idea, which unfortunately people have noted this, probably I would venture a guess that the substantial reason for the Holocaust, in terms of the fact that the Tiferes and Oyos is in the hands of the Sultan. I mean, remember, that's the Barometer, right? And the fact that the Sultan he's unique enormous amount of Kedusha. Then we look at that, therefore Klal Yisrael has a Yisurim, right? I would say the primary reason why the Holocaust was so devastating is the results of the Reformed movement. Yeah. These guys have been going on since Mendelssohn, and they have removed the Reform movement in Western Europe, and that's an American movement, and the Haskalah, which is basically Russia and the East and so on, they were absolutely devastating to Europe. What they did is they took Jews, who knows how many hundreds of thousands of Yidden became reformed or maskilim and so on. It was a tremendous movement, and I would venture to say that the amount of chatoim, the amount of sins that were added in that time was enormous. Now, I'm not saying that's the only reason for Holocaust. I believe one of the primary ideas of the Holocaust, there are many ways of thinking about it, is that to undo an enormous amount of awe that the Sultan had, not just because of the last 200-300 years, but for the last 2,000 years. It's like we need to balance the books. Because when the Mashiach is very close, you need to balance the books. You need to get rid of all the complaints, against the Jews, which is the Chatoim and all the Tikkun, and we're looking at 2,000 years of complaints, that has to be, so before Mashiach comes, that has to be balanced. So probably the Holocaust was one of the greatest events in history that would balance the books, what we would actually call accelerate the process of kapora, to accelerate the process of kapora and oynish, really accelerate it. That's why what was done by the Holocaust from 1939 to 1945, 6 years, it's probably more Yisurim, more evil that was done in those 6 years than perhaps in 1,000 years of Jewish history. And the reason why is the Hashem wants to accelerate the process. He wants to balance the books and get rid of a lot of stuff that the Jews were indebted to, and so on, So that's why you had the Holocaust.
Can you say
that's one of the reasons. There are others.
can you say some people were sacrificed? For example, it's like a communal kapara in that if someone was killed in the Holocaust, and someone survived, you can't say the one who survived had greater merits.
No.
So some people could be picked at random, even though they may be righteous.
No, it's not a matter of
part of this national.
No, it's not a matter of random. It's not random. But like the Gemara says in Bava Kama, that when there's a tremendous kitrugim, then even tzaddik is taken away before. That's why it's interesting. You find many tzaddikim died in the 30s. Chofetz Chaim, Chon Wasserman, there's a lot of tzaddikim that were gone already in the 30s because the Russian didn't want them to see and so on. But one of the ideas
in the 40s.
Who?
The Nazis.
Yeah, during the
During but probably the early part of it. I think so. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, they died in the 30s.
But you're saying that the people who were left there for the Holocaust benefited. We benefit by their Yisurim.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, when tzaddik dies, there's a tremendous kapara.
Is that this week's parsha Kanti Safeh?
I believe that's why we have a couple of tzaddikim died just recently. Rabbi Yashu's last year, Rabbi Vadi said this year. I believe the reason why they died is to protect Christ for what's about to happen. It's about to happen. It's not good. And these people, by their death, we know that because we see that Kaporas Miriam. So what happened?
Last week was unbelievable.
Anyway,
that's this week's parsha Kanti Safeh. It told look, you don't be grabbed into.
But I want to just mention as an agat, since we're talking about the Holocaust. So one of the ideas of Holocaust, again, remember, it's method B, that first and always is not in our hands, so we experience a tremendous amount of Yisur and Golus and so on, right? And a lot of, I'm saying the first idea behind that was the concept of accelerating the process, to get rid of all the claims against the Jews, all the chatoim and so on. So what the Moshe did is he just did it and said, okay, 6 years. And that was an unbelievably intense Golus Yisurin period of time. Yeah. But that's only one thing that was accomplished. I'll mention one more. Go on. The second thing that was accomplished, that before the Mashiach comes, there has to be an incredible chusha, darkness. In fact, you see that from the second pasuk in Chumash, where it says, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the waters, right? But what was on top of the face of the waters? And the answer is choshech, because there was no or yet. So the Baal HaTurim has a gematria, that Ruach Elokim Rachefes, gematria, Zuhi Rucha Shel Melech HaMashiach. This is gematria, you know? And what that means is that if it's method B, which is, remember, first knows about a Satan, he's got the ore, we got to take it back and so on, then the Mashiach will come in the midst of incredible darkness, which is absence of Ruchnius. That's where it says that there will be an incredible hunger, thirst, and it's not for mayim or for food, it is for the Derech Hashem. And we live in that time. So how do you create this darkness?
Why do you need the darkness?
Wait,
Why?
how do you create it? The answer is you take out clients from. Because every Jewish neshama is an unbelievable ore, right? And we know miyat or doichahab min ha'choshech. If you walk into a dark room, you walk in with a candle. It takes away a lot of the darkness. It's for the amount of light coming out of a little candle in a dark room. It's way out of proportion to the amount of light that it lends to the room. So therefore, every Jewish neshama is a sakana for or. It's interesting, you know. So therefore, the Baruch Hashem said, "Listen, Mashiach is going to come soon. I got to make this place dark without going into why, right? And as a result of that, I got to take out the Jews. So it's not just 6 million Jews that died. It's 6 million Jews of the cream, you know, of the cream of Jewry. Or you're talking about, you know, the Yidden, Western Europe, part of Eastern Europe. So the Torah centers, they're just wiped out, you know. The Gedolim, the Tzaddikim. So what the Baruch Hashem did, which is interesting, normally you would see a deterioration of Ruchnius. 500 years. Tanoim, the period of Tanoim was what? 300 years? Then you had the period of Amoraim. You know, you had the Zugas and so on, Tanoim. Amoraim lasted 300 years, 350, right? Then you had the Rabbanon Sfoiroim. These are all different kufas. Then you had the Goyinim lasted a couple hundred years. Rishonim was a couple hundred years, right? And now we're in the period of the Achronim, and so on. You know, you notice that in order for you to distinguish the diminishment or the descent of Ruchnius, it's 400 years. But if you take a look, the difference between the Holocaust, before the Holocaust, the level of Ruchnius, and after the Holocaust today, it's staggering. So what the Rosham did, and that's what the acceleration is, he decreased the amount of ore in 6 years, what it should have taken 500 years. No, it's the natural evolution of the diminishment of ore.
Why is that necessary?
Would have taken hundreds of years, and the way the Rosham did it so rapidly was the Holocaust. So that's an idea number 2. Is that the Mashiach has to come in the midst of unbelievable darkness. And therefore the Holocaust served that purpose.
There's no other way of Mashiach to come.
Wait, no, there is. Through mitzvahs. That's a concept of either Ein Ben David Bo, what? Either Chayom or Zakoim, you know, or Kul Chayom Kulum Zakoim. Yeah, so method B is Kulum Chayom. That's what I'm saying. There's 2 ways to do the Tikkun. There are 2 ways that the Mashiach comes. It's either method A, right, or method B. Method A, by the way, is also Anhogas HaMishpat. It's also the Anhog of Mishpat where the Moshe responds justice. Then there's Anhogas HaYichud, which I didn't talk much about, which is that the way the Moshe behaves to the Bria is totally mysterious. There's no rhyme or reason, which I'll mention and so on, you know. But in any case, we are now in a tkufa of incredible darkness. The Tiferes and Ois of mankind is beyond our understanding how little the Jews really have, although now it seems to be getting more and more, right? So what the Holocaust did, again, a second primary idea, was it not only accelerated the process, but created what should have taken hundreds of years, because that's how long it takes for you to see the diminishment of ore, of stature, of Ruchnius. And it happened in 6 years. The difference between us now, before the war, I mean, you know, and now it's much worse. With the deceasement, the death of many Gedolim in the last 10 years. It's schrecklich what's going on. You look around and say, excuse me, who's around anymore? You know, what's around anymore in all areas of Yiddishkeit? And that's what happens in the end. That the darkness, Ramchal has its way of saying, that before the Mashiach comes, the blinds, the windows, which is, the blinds will be shut. Mamish down to the, where you ever see, imagine you have a window that's painted black, and you shut it down, and you don't see anything, and you leave just a little open. A thin strip of light that's left, you know? That's what happens before Mashiach comes. It's ad v'lo ad bichlal. If that window's shut, the bria is over. It's gone. Everything's annihilated. So what's left is that little thin stream of light, and with that darkness, the Mashiach will come. So the Holocaust was able to do that. But in any case, so we have that what you begin to see is that the concept of who has the Tiferes and Ois is a barometer. At what method is being employed to bring the Tikkun, and where does Klal Yisrael stand? Where does the Satan stand vis-a-vis that? It's an important idea, and so on, you know. When you see the concept of Tiferes and Ois, are you smoking?
No, it's an e-cigarette.
Oh, okay. An e-cigarette? What is that?
Vapor, it's vapor.
It's water vapor.
It's water vapor.
Oh,
it doesn't. It's not nicotine and all that stuff.
No,
there's nicotine in it, but there's no, it's only nicotine.
you don't have secondhand.
There's no secondhand.
There's no second hand.
There is some those.
There
They
is.
just came out with it, yeah. I don't know what brand you have, but they're not so big on those anymore, unless someone's trying to quit. Now there's an alternative.
Oh, you mean there is nicotine in
There's
that?
nicotine in it.
So I have to ask you to put it out. What?
I'll stop, my pleasure.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Wait, does that mean that
Anyway.
we open yeshiva today that's being active yeshiva
Next time, Rick Kugel.
more people are running?
Well, let me tell you what method B produces. Okay, what does it produce, you know? There are three components. When the Jews go into the klipa, as they say, or they go, you know, where they go into the, where the Tveres and Ois is taken away from them, then certain things happen. You know, one, the Tveres and Ois goes to the Goyim. So the Goyim themselves become the greatest ma'akvim, the greatest intruders, or people who destroy, annihilate the ability of a person to be from, and so on.
And
By the way, anybody know what Golos really means? Vis-a-vis the individual. What does it mean to be in Golos, really?
To be controlled, under control of the...
To be controlled, that's certainly true, but that's, no. There's something more
Not in your
profound.
natural
separated
element.
from your...
Well, yeah, it's true. That's not what it
Not in
is.
your habitat.
Well, you just said that in different words. What does it mean to really to be in Golos? Or what's the defining moment of being in Golos? It's true. To be under the jurisdiction, the control of others, no question about that.
separate.
Subjugation.
It's all the same word, you know.
Cut off from everybody.
Disconnect.
Not being your
Not-
full potential.
Hey, that's
being who you
interesting.
are.
What?
Not being able to be who you are.
Very good. That's what it is. What Golos really is, and of course it's brought about by other control. What it means to be in Golos, it means that whatever your potential is, too bad. It means that you can't be who you really can be. And even what you are comes with enormous struggle. Of course, that comes about, or the mechanism that is used to inhibit your growth is the fact that you're under the control of others. Of course. You know, that's what we think of Golos, you know, subjugation or whatever. And that's what it obviously is. But that's not what Golos is. The primary concept of Golos is that you cannot be what you can be. You know, there's an army advertisement. You ever see? What the army advertises? Yeah, it's a gewaldige concept. Be what you can be. No, does that mean you got to join the army for this, right? What?
Israeli army?
No, the American army. You know, be what you can be. Most people go through their whole lives. How many people are what they really are, what they could have been? Maybe 1% of mankind does it. 99% of mankind never makes it, you know. But the concept of Golos is terrible because it means, in many ways, that no matter how much you struggle, you can't be all you can be. There's an incredible impediment, and basically it's the Goyim. It's certainly an unbelievable impediment because they're killing Jews and they don't allow Jews to daven mitzvahs. Greeks, you can't do Mila, Torah. I mean, it's beyond belief what these guys have done. You know, so you could do it, but there's an unbelievable difficulty in doing it. But that's as far as I'm concerned, the true meaning of Golos is the inability to achieve a ruchnistic state that you could really achieve had you not had all these incredible impediments, you know, and so on. That's what Golos in the end really is. And that's really, so to have Tiferes and Ois isn't just a gift to have might. You know, it's really that which you need to do what you can do. You need chokhmah, you need hatzlacha, and then you can be successful. If you don't have Tiferes and Ois, if they're given to Goyim, you can't be what you can be. You just don't have the wherewithal to do it. A very important concept. We get to see at Tiferes and Ois, which is, like I said, Oiti Yisrael b'Sephora, Ois Yisrael b'Gvura. Right? In the brachas in the morning, that's the only time that the brachas use the word Yisrael, is critical, necessary, because that allows you to be ruchni. That's why the Barometer gives it to us. He wants to give us the ability to access Chokhmah and to access Hatzlacha. Then, okay, you have to want to do it, fine. But if you want to do it, no problem. But when we don't have that first noise, watch out. We can't be what we can be. And if we achieve some level, it's with unbelievable difficulty.
Is the first noise restricted?
Which, by the way, requires greater Mesiras Nefesh. And Mesiras Nefesh is one of the things that determine the amount of reward, Mesiras Nefesh, which we
Is the first noise restricted to people who are Shemitah Mitzvahs and someone who's not Shemitah Mitzvahs? That he can have Tveres noise, but it's not the Tveres noise that we need. You have a Nobel laureate, a Friday guy.
That's chemistry. There's 3 Jews.
I'm saying, so that's Tveres noise.
Yeah, sure, of course.
But that's not Tveres noise that's going to bring it. It's almost like having a guy's having the Tveres noise.
That's exactly what they're having. Goyim, Western civilization is Tveres noise. It's exactly what it is. You want to experience it emotionally? Just walk down Fifth Avenue. Don't walk down Rehov Yafo. That's not the Tveres noise. I'm sorry.
Imitation.
Who?
Imitation.
Wannabes.
Wannabes, right?
That's what it is, You walk down Fifth Avenue, it's just beyond belief with that. Or you walk down the Champs-Élysées in Paris. Or you walk down, what's the main street in London? I don't know what the main street, You walk around, it's wow, this is Tveres noise. It's not just, it's the level of sophistication, it's like, in fact, it's funny, I once gave a shiur in a city which is probably one of the greatest Tveres and Ois of all. And I went to that city to give a Shabbaton. Okay. And, so the place I gave it was like 10 miles from this place, it's in the same city. And I had to go just to that city. I wasn't saying, but I went to do it because I had to see what is Tveres v'ois biyad tzor, in the hands of the enemy. And of course, what's the name of the city? Las Vegas. I mean, you walk down what's called the Strip, I mean, did you ever walk into a building that cost $2 billion? It's a building. It costs $2 billion. Yeah, it's the Wynn, or whatever. There's the Bellagio, the Wynn. I mean, those guys have been there. It's beyond belief. The opulence, the wealth, the display. The display of materialism is beyond belief. That's Tveres v'ois. That's what it is. In what they want to be Tveres v'ois, of course. That's not what we want. Our Tveres v'ois is unbelievable majesty in Torah.
It's funny that.
Tzidkus, avodah, and so on. But if you fry, that's their Tveres v'ois. Las Vegas is one of the greatest cities in the world that demonstrate that Tveres v'ois they're doing. New York City is another classic. I mean, these cities demonstrate unbelievable Tveres v'ois. And so on. Anyway, I don't want to get too far involved with this, but
What does that have to do with the Shechina being a God?
Networks, the movies, the this,
The Shechina is a vessel of Tveres and Ois?
the essential attributes of the Shechina is Tveres and Ois. Ask yourself, what are the 2 major attributes that you need to do anything? Wisdom, reality. You need to know reality, A, and B, you have to interact with that reality to the extent that you want to. That's all it is. You got to know what's out there, and you got to be able to do what you want to do. That's Tveres, knowing, and doing is Ois. Hatzlacha is Ois, exactly. That's it. The greatest Tveres and Ois of all is Shechina, because the Shechina is reality, and it's got the Ois. In fact, in this week's Parsha, by when he told Sarah, "You can have a kid," right? She's 90 years old. So the Moshe said, "Hayipolim Hashem Dova." You mean something that's too far from me? Or the classic Hayad Hashem Tikso, is the hand of God short? What is that? That's Ois. That's incredible. That's omnipotence. Is infinite Ois. And Chokhmah, the Moshe, is the reality. Chokhmah, what is wisdom? Well, knowledge is nothing more than the apprehension of reality. That's all it is, and so on. So we have those gifts from the Moshe. Tveres v'ois. What he has, we have, because we're part of the Shechina. Our problem is we need that. Why? Because then we can become ruchni. With the Tveres and Ois, we can become ruchni. You don't have the Tveres and Ois, you ain't going anywhere, as they say. And that's the contest. Who has it, really? You know?
But in Golis we can have the Pharisees also. No?
We do have.
But Vadia Yosef, Eliashib had the Pharisees. No? Even though they were in Golis.
They certainly had Tveres. Ois, they had it in a certain sense, yes. In terms of individualistically, yes. But I'm talking about on a Klal Yisrael level. Remember, there's Tveres Ois on an individual, and there's Tveres Yisrael and Klal Yisrael. It's two different levels, right? So individually, there are people that have Tveres Ois. There's no question about that. But on a national level, of the Klal, the Rabbin, Tveres Ois, no way, and so on, you know. So you can have individuals that have it, yeah, but not on a national. And that's really where we need it, nationalistic. So therefore, the concept of, so Goyim, they're the classic inhibitors, right, of Ruchnius, Hatzlach and Ruchnius, which is incredible when you think about that. But that's what their job is.
They say in every generation there's a designated Mashiach that may
Yes.
know who he is. Well, it seems like, we need a boost, because if you look at all the Yidden, I'd say 1% only know about Torah and mitzvahs. How many know about Torah education and mitzvahs? And if you look at the Gashmias, even though we're less than 1% of the bigger population,
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, I was just making a comment though. Our influence in Gashmias, the Jews behind starting Las Vegas and the networks and the movies. How is 1%? What are the Torah observant Jews? What percentage of all Yidden? How are we supposed to accumulate enough for the whole Klal Yisrael? Because we're not all on the same page.
No, there are individuals, like I say,
Like
individually there are
90%.
differences, but on a national level, we don't have the Tveres Ois.
Even if you remove the other nations and just look at Yidden, we have people like, those are religious people, they're fanatics, and we don't wear techelis, and that group's the next thing to Christianity.
Well, that's different.
How are we supposed to
Well,
make headway on it?
you're bringing in other stuff, you know. I'm just trying to stick to a theme so far, you know. But anyway, so the first inhibitors, the great inhibitors, are the Goyim. Who's the second great inhibitors?
Erev.
Very good, the Erev. They stop us. You take a look what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. Those guys, and they're the Erev, obviously, and so on, you know. We all know what that means, the government of Israel and so on, you know. They want to send guys to the draft. I mean, that's the end of it, take away money. I mean, we're not going into the arguments. That's the classic inhibitors of Tveres Ois. So the Erev Rav, you know, these are one of the great, and those are Jews doing it to Jews, right? That's the second emissary of the Sultan to destroy the Tveres Ois, or rather to destroy the ability of Klal Yisrael. There's a third, which I am not going to talk about, other than just mention it. It's very hard to believe because it's a Zoya. There's the Erev Rav, Rabbah, and the Erev Rav Zira, the small Erev Rav. That's very interesting. There's a small Erev Rav that's not the Rabbah. You know, they're not the friar guys. There's Erev Rav Zira, and those are religious Jews. Yes. There are religious Jews that inhibit the growth of Klal Yisrael. You know, and so on, without getting into what and so on. Well, I don't, you know, there's in many ways, Sinas Chinam is one of the classics that they manifest. There are many from Yidden, unfortunately, that destroy Klal Yisrael because they have power. First Ois, they actually have that, you know, and they destroy because of enormous Sinas Chinam. That's the whole contest between groups of Jews. Well, you're not this and you're not that. I'm sorry, you're not a. I don't want to get into the whole thing because that's very controversial, obviously, and so on. But there's a lot of, unfortunately, from Yidden that are really, you know, they're great inhibitors. They're called the Erev Rav Zeira, the little Erev Rav, you know. But they are part of that mix that inhibit Klal Yisrael because of Sinas Chinam, and there's a lot of that stuff now.
So Zohar that said that, you said?
I think so. It's Erev Rav Zeira. It identifies Zohar.
What is
Like,
that?
they identifies from Jews as an Arab Zohar?
Yeah. In fact, somebody once showed me. I didn't see it, but he said that there's Sanza Rov, Sanza, Derech Hashem, that one of the hashmatas in the back of his safe or whatever, that actually says that a lot of people that we would never believe, Mamasha Erev Rav people, he was referring to Fruma people, that the Mamasha Erev Rav, he says, in his day, we're looking at some 150 years ago, forget today, forget it, without going into who, what, where, when, why.
How can we identify that?
Well, I am not going to do anything beyond what I just said.
Let's go get them.
But the main, let's go what?
Let's go get them.
But let me ask
You
you,
don't want to get under the radar here.
can a person honestly,
You don't want
Shut off the
to.
can a
video.
personally honestly say,
But I can just tell you, one of the major weapons that they use, which has always been that way with Klal Yisrael, is sinas chinam. There's an enormous amount of, I don't know if I'd call it hatred. I don't know if I'd use that word. It's a very strong term. But certainly arrogance, where I'm somebody special and who are you? Because you don't measure up to my standard or whatever, and so on. So as a result of that, they do a lot of acts that clearly inhibit a lot of people from growing in ruchnius. They're part of the Erev Rav, except they're called the Erev Rav Zeira, the smaller one, and so on. That's what I want to talk about with them.
what are they, a club? I mean, every person,
The messenger.
can anybody say he's never had cynicism?
No, it's not.
I mean, people have to work on
This is
that.
chronic. I think we're just talking about
You know what I mean?
chronic.
No.
So,
The Erev Rav Zeira. Well, let me ask something. We know who's the Erev Rav? Is it the Reformed? Is it the people who are Reformed Jews? No. People are Reformed. People are Reformed Jews or conservative or Reconstructionist Jews or secular Jews. They're not Erev Rav. It's the leaders who are the Erev Rav. Well, what does the people know? They don't know. What do they know? They're sheep led to the slaughter. So, it is the leaders who either are backed by a crazy ideology or there's sinas chinam or arrogance, pure gaiva and so on. They are the Erev Rav. So obviously everybody has sinas chinam, I mean, in different levels of it. You don't like this guy, you don't like that. Whatever it is, But you're not, you don't join that club because, big deal, what can you do? But it's when you're able to seriously intervene and what he called inhibit growth of ruchnius by many yidden because of whatever you have, sin or arrogance or geus or whatever and so on and so forth, that's an Erev Rav. That's what they are. So, these Klal is not Erev Rav, it is the leaders that are Erev Rav. But anyway, I'll get more into that. But anyway, now, what happens in a period? What happens in a period of method B, which is Tiferes V'Ois in the Goyim, then you have the Goyim, the Erev Rav, and so on. What happens? What's our understanding in many ways of the Rebbeinu Shalom, which is itself very interesting. So the first thing is that the Tikkun that the Rebbeinu Shalom has to perform in that kufa is irrational. The Rebbeinu Shalom looks like he's irrational. And therefore you mahar after his midas. So this doesn't make any sense. In fact, today is the classic. Today is the classic story, and that's really why it happened, of the Rebbeinu Shalom presenting himself as irrational. You know what irrationality is? To be irrational means something which is mutually exclusive. Something cannot be A and B at the same time. You know what I'm saying? That's there's certain laws of what's called transcendental being. Something cannot be A and not A at the same time. It's impossible. That's irrational. It can't be night and day at the same time, and so on. That's called irrational. And in today's parsha, we had the classic nisoyon of the Rebbeinu Shalom appearing as an irrational God. Anybody know what I'm referring to? The Akedah. Why was it irrational?
Koi Yazarecha.
Koi.
Yazarecha. Meaning he's going to have descendants.
Well, B'yitzchak, ki B'yitzchak, B'kol Chazar. Yeah. Here the Rebbeinu Shalom tells them, right, forget it, don't worry about Yishmael, right? So, okay, throw the guy out, right? But because B'yitzchak, B'kol Chazar, that's not why you have to throw Yishmael out, because Yitzchak, no. But obviously, if he stops him from being your zera, you got to throw him out, right? So wait a minute, this makes no sense. It's impossible. Why? Because the Baruch Hashem says on one side, that Yitzchak, your descendants, you will have descendants, and there will be Yitzchak. And the other side, he says, bring them up for an oila, shech them. That's impossible. And the Baruch Hashem will not do that. The Baruch Hashem cannot issue two commandments which are completely exclusive of each other. I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but he's not going to do that. So the first question is, did he in fact do that? And the answer is, of course not. Because he never said to Shech Yitzchak, he said, V'ha'aleu li'oila, just bring him up, put him on the Mizbeach, and then take him off. Nowhere does it say to kill Yitzchak. It doesn't say V'shachteu li'oila. So the Baruch Hashem, in effect, never issued a command, which is impossible to do. Or, two different nevuos.
So why didn't Avraham Avinu realize that?
No, he didn't, because when you say bring him up as an oila, obviously the implication is...
But it was in contradiction to what he told them before.
Wait,
so you should have drawn that conclusion too. That it's just to be
No. The Baruch Hashem said bring him up as an oila, we assume it means to bring him up as an oila completely. And of course, that's not what the Baruch Hashem said, but that's what he interpreted. So therefore, that came to Avraham Avinu.
Avram could have.
What's problem? Yeah, it's not a bad idea, yeah. So that came across, Avraham Avinu interpreted that as completely irrational.
But he didn't question.
So that was the incredible thing. He didn't question it, which is unbelievable. Not only he didn't question it, they got up early in the morning to do it. Wow, so he could have dilly-dallied the whole day and said, well, I don't see, I got to eat breakfast first, and then I got do my gym and work out a little. It's like, he got up in the morning and went. Why? The question then is that the explanation? Great. Why would the Russian do that? Would I ever want
To test
No, we know it's a test, but why that type of test? Why? There's many tests that the Russian can do, but most of them involve unknown. We don't know why the Russian did it. But the Russian is always rational. You know what I'm saying? There's always a reason. But there cannot be a tzivoy which is fundamentally contradictory to each other in real terms. So the real question is, why would he do that? Why would he test Avram with a classic or an incredible test called irrationality? And you know what the answer is? What I think? Because this last test, when Avraham Avinu will pass it, it will enable us to have the schus of the Rebbeinu Shalom being irrational to us, or apparently being irrational to us. What does that mean? Because in the end of time, when the Tiferes V'Oyez goes into the hands of the Goyim, it looks so crazy, we can't believe what's happening. You see, we cannot believe what's happening. To us, it appears as if the Rebbeinu Shalom is irrational. So what the Rebbeinu Shalom said to Avraham Avinu is, because you withstood the test of irrationality, that schus allows me to appear to them as irrational, and therefore, even though of course it's not, but appear that way, and that will save my Israel. There's a very interesting Rishna, Yisroel Rishna. Anybody ever heard of him? The Rishna, B'yana Chasidim, Rishna, talked about all these, all come from Rishna. He said two very interesting statements, which I think beautifully defines what happens in the end of days, which is really what we're going through. The first thing he said is that at the end of time, the test that a Jew will be subjected to will be greater than Yakedas Yitzchak. That's incredible, isn't it? In other words, what we are going through now is greater than the Nisoyin that Avraham Avinu had, Yakedas Yitzchak, which is unbelievable. That's how, and therefore, the reward that every Jew has for holding on will be beyond belief. You see. Now, the question then is, well, what was the test of Avraham Avinu by the Akedah? And the answer is irrationality. It was irrational, right? Therefore, what he's saying is, at the end of time, it will be the test of irrationality. The Holocaust borders on that test. It's irrational. In fact, the Russian aids and abets the Germans, right? And meanwhile, he's destroying Klal Yisrael, and so on. So that test of irrationality saves the Jews. That's the anhogenes teres, and nobody knows how it works, and so on. So therefore, the test we experience now is greater than the Akedas Yitzchak. But he says another thing, which is very interesting. What kind of a test is that? You remember the story of Eliyahu and Baal? Mama Har Carmel? Yeah, so Eliyahu says to the Jews, and imagine what a scene it must have been. The whole Jewish nation is in front of Har Carmel, right? And there's Eliyahu and Novi, right? On one side. And on the other side is all the, Ivdi Baal. All the guys from Baal, right? And it's a clear day, right? And it won't have korbanos, animals on top, right? And like Eliyahu says, the one of which lightning will come out of a clear sky, consume the altar, and so on. Hashem Elokim, that's the real God. And he says, if we prove we're, then follow me. If they prove theirs, fine, fine. And what happens? We know the story. A lightning bolt came out of nowhere. I mean, there was no cloud, so you could say, well, it was Teva, right? A lightning bolt came out of a clear blue sky and devoured the Mizbech of Baal. Of Eliyahu, right? Just devoured it, and everybody said, Hashem Elokim, right? So the Rishna says that in the end of time, the lightning bolt will come and devour Baals.
Why?
That's irrational. In other words, what it means is that God is aiding and abetting Baal. But that's completely irrational. How can the Hashem, which is the, loves Klal Yisrael and says all the time, Avinu, he's our father, king. Excuse me, how can you actually lend credence to the Baal? It's unbelievable. It's like God has betrayed the Jewish people in the greatest possible manner. Not only has he not helped them, but he has actually signed on the dotted line of Baal.
How is that manifested?
Wait, so that's what the Rishna says. That's complete irrationality, but much more. Not only it doesn't make sense, but he is actually supporting Avodah Zarah. Wow. That's the type of Nisoyim will be at the end. And that's because that's the whole concept. When they have first v'ois, all of this stuff's going on. It's the barometer, it's the indicator, right? It has all the ideas. It doesn't allow us to become ruchni, but more than that, it actually aids and abets and supports Avodah Zarah. Will all the anti-Jewish succeed tremendously? That's what he said, and that's exactly what's happening. When you take a look around, who's got all the high positions? The positions of control, stature and all that. It's either the Goyim, the Erev Zero. These are the guys in charge, So the question is, excuse me, what's happening? Why are these guys in charge and what's happening here, And this is the idea, that at the end of time it will appear as if God gives them all the hatzlacha, the know-how, the money, everything to destroy Yiddishkeit. Or is certainly not to allow it to grow. And this is what the Rishna says. And this is the concept of Tferes V'yois in the Goyim. Not only do they have the Tferes V'yois, but he aids and abets them as opposed to us. Pretty bad. It's grim. What can I tell you, But this is the end of time, This is the choshech that has to be faced in the end of time, and so on, Now, just to finish off, because it's getting late, you can ask, okay, what's the, how does God feel about this? How does he feel about this? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's his response to this? Is he getting joy out of this? Now you understand what the Gemara does. We read to you a short Gemara, and then you begin to understand what is going on in the mind of God in terms of how he feels about what he's doing. Remember what he's done. Not only do we not have Ruchni, right? Not only do they have all the gifts, right? But he actually is supporting them. Make sure that they're matzliach. And that's what it means. Anyway, Tanya, Omer Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, I was once walking on the Derech And I had a daven, so I walked into one of the churban of Yerushalayim. Looks like it was the Makom Mikdash, whatever. You walk into a churva to be able to daven, and so on. Anyway, so he met Eliyahu. Obviously, these people, they were able to do that, and he met me at the door. Yeah, so I finished the tefillah and I was about to walk out, and there's Eliyahu standing there. So then he said to me, yes, I said, Shalom Alecha Rebbe, and he said, Shalom Alecha, and so on, So then he asked me why I went to the churban. Whatever the halachic consequences are, shouldn't have gone there because it's dangerous, you should have did tefillah ksara, whatever. Anyway, so then after the halachic discussion, Yom Ali, he says to me, B'ni, my son, he's talking to Rabbi Yossi, Ma kol shemata b'churva zu. Did you hear a voice in this churva? Hear a voice? Did you hear anything? So, V'mati loi, yeah. I said to him, Shemati baskol. I heard a divine voice. A baskol is a divine voice, which you have to be a tremendous tzaddik to hear. It's a proclamation that has to be given out, and some people can hear it. Obviously, you have to be in a certain madrega. So obviously, Rabbi Yossi was, because he talked to Eliyahu Novi. So clearly, he was on the madrega. They're a baskol. I mean, just to talk to Eliyahu Novi is beyond belief, right? So he says, yeah, Shemenahemes kiyoino. It was cooing like a dove, V'omeres, and it was saying, and here's the incredible thing: Oy lebonim, woe is to the children. Because of their sins, Hechrafti es beisi, I destroyed my house. What is that? Yerushalayim. V'sorafti es hecholi, and I destroyed my palace, Beis Hamikdash. V'heglisim lebeino umas, and I exiled them among the umas. What does that sound like? It's method B. It's what it is. In other words, I destroyed my Beis Hamikdash. That's an unbelievable tiferes, and I put him in Golas. That's the ois, right? That's mamish what he's saying. And Moshe is saying, "Oily, woe is me." I mean, you're talking about an unbelievable tsar. So, V'yom Ali. So that's what I told. That's what Rabbi Yossi said. That's what I heard the bas call. V'yom Ali, and Eliyahu said to me, "Chayecho, b'chay roishcho, upon your life." It's not now that you heard it. You just have the chaparayim and you heard this, right? Every day, sholosh pomim, 3 times a day, omeres kach. The Rebbe says this. Did you believe this? Then he says something else that when they come in and say Amen Yesh Marabo, the Rebbe shakes his head and he says. Again, oily that I exiled them from the Shulchan of the Father. What do you see from here? You see that what the Baruch did. I destroyed my house and I destroyed my city and all that. What are you talking about? What does it mean? What it means is that I went from method A to method B. That's what it means. It still has to be a tikkun. Baruch didn't throw everybody out and said, "I'll see you guys around." It's absurd. What he's really saying is that I had to go from one method of tikkun, which is the recommended way, as they say, and I had to go into method B, which is terrible. It'll do the tikkun, but it's terrible. But what? Firstly, he says that I destroyed my city, which is Yerushalayim. I burnt my heichal, which is the Beis Hamikdash, and I exiled them among the umas. That's firstly oyes. You see, that's the Russian mamish referring to the different methods of tikkun. But what's the feeling of the Baruch? Oily, woe is me. You see, and he says that 3 times a day. So what do we see? That the Shechina, the Tsar of the Shechina, is beyond comprehension. It's not that Baruch says, "Well, what's the difference? They'll do Tikkun A, they'll do Tikkun B." No, but the fact that Klal Yisrael has been shifted into Tikkun B is unbelievable Tsar for the Shechina. That we do not have the Tiferes V'Oyes. They have the Tiferes V'Oyes. And not only do they have the Tiferes V'Oyes, but they continue to be Matzliach, as if God aids and abets them. It's like the lightning strike comes on Baal, which means that the Bereshit wants Baal to be Matzliach, and he just abandons Klal Yisrael. But the effect of the Shekhinah is beyond belief. The Tzar, that we cannot have any asaga. In fact, if you ever felt, which is interesting, if you ever felt the Tzar of the Shekhinah for 1 nanosecond, you would die. It's interesting. You could not sovel the Tzar of the Shekhinah of that concept of what he said.
See that?
What?
Where do we see that?
We don't. I mean, maybe somebody says it, but to experience the full Tzar is beyond human comprehension. Yeah, we do Tikkun Chatzos, right? What do you do with Tikkun Chatzos? What do you do with Tikkun Chatzos? Is it merely a matter of saying Kapitlach? No. It's to try to connect with the Tzar of the Shekhinah. What Tzar? The Tzar that the Moshe has for going from A to B. With the Yidden, now we understand, it's not just that first noise they have. We're in Golas, which means we cannot become what we could have become. You know, could you imagine, you know, you basically everybody is a father. Imagine he's in the role in the yeshiva, right? And you realize he's not going to make it in this yeshiva. You would have unbelievable tzar. And not just because you're paying a hefty tuition. That's not the only reason why, you know, because this kid will never make it. Whatever reason, the educational system is no good, and so on. You would have unbelievable tzar, right? As a human. Allah has kama v'kama that the Bosham has this tzar that it's not just we'll never make it. It's incredible what's going on. You know, we cannot be the ruchni we could be. We can't grow the way we could grow. So we see, therefore, that the tzar of the Shekhinah is infinite. It's not stam. You probably can't even be measured. So that's what I'm saying. If you ever felt the total tzar of the Shekhinah, you couldn't live. It's beyond comprehension. So we try to, of course, do that, replicate that at a lower level by saying Tikkun Hatzos. So you know, so when you're taking Hatzos, what are you doing? What you are doing is trying to emotionally empathize, not sympathize. Empathize with God, how He feels, not how we feel. We're not talking about, well, I feel terrible that, you know, I don't have the base to make this. Excuse me. It's not about us in that sense. It's what does God feel that He cannot do the justice to His children, that they cannot be gedolim, that none of us, in a certain sense, really can aspire to be even gedolim of today. I mean, who can be a Chavetz Chaim? Or a Vali Yosef, or a Vali Yashiv? I mean, how many people can do that? So what we're trying to connect to in Tikkun Chatzos is God's tzar, not ours. And we do in a certain measure, and so on, and that's what Tikkun Chatzos. So therefore, we see, therefore, that the ultimate conclusion of all this is that the tzar of the Shekhinah, that he had to move from first v'ois from us, to first v'ois of the Satan, and then all the stuff that comes as a result of that is tzar, which is beyond comprehension. That's something to remember, you know. But in any case, we now have a handle on what first v'ois is. It's far more than just what it is. It's a whole barometer of who's got the most schus and so on and so forth. Who's got the real goods, as they say, you know. And also, what it means that because we don't have Tferes V'ois, which is the gifts of the Shekhinah, we can't do it. We don't have the Tferes. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the ability. This is the problem. Because of all the ma'akvim, all the guys who inhibit our growth. In any case, so this is the problem. And then I want to go next week into an interesting area, Shem, Yosef and Shem. Why is Yosef buried there? What does this have to do with Tferes V'ois? And that's really the beginning of the history of the interplay between Tferes V'ois, as we will see. It's very fascinating. You understand why Shem is what it is, why Yosef is buried there. Why is that always the first place that the Arabs take over? I don't know if you realize that. In the Intifada, the first thing that went down was Shem, was Kever Yosef and so on. And that's really, in many ways, the whole essence of Tferes V'ois, which I want to do next week. So, next week is what, 9:30? 9:30? Well, I don't know if 9, because, what? Shabbos was over 7, 7:12.